Good morning, everyone. We were just talking about the weather. Hopefully you have got sunshine and not rain and maybe potential snow coming. Just going to give a bit of time this morning for everyone to come into the webinar. I know how busy mornings can be, but welcome to Autumn 2. So clocks have gone back. I feel like I've definitely reset at the moment. Heating is on. I'm sure it is in schools too. And I'm sure now your corridors are lined with coats, bags, and lunch boxes. I do remember particularly looking over where children would walk along the corridor and be stepping over the coats and lunch boxes rather than actually picking them up. Thought I'd have a bit of an unusual question to engage some of you this morning while we're waiting about lunch boxes. Now, in my career, I have many different types of lunch boxes with children. I'd love to know, and you can pop this in the chat, what is the oddest or most unusual items you've had in school packed lunches? Not necessarily yours. Mine was a McDonald's. Came in a family's actually lunch boxes. It was two brothers. The mum came in late, handed them into reception. By the time obviously we got to lunch and they opened them, they'd got a Happy Meal, both of them. So I'd love to know in the chat, is there anything unusual you had in? Oh, I've had Skittles in once as well. That was another one. That was in a reception lunchbox. If you don't want to share that this morning, you could share what's your go-to dinner. We were talking about this yesterday as a team, and my go-to dinner, particularly on one of those nights where I come back from Governors, it was late or parents' evening, mine is beans on toast. So don't be shy. Please let me know any lunchbox unusual items or go-to dinners. But no, thank you for coming this morning. So I just knocked my notebook. Just a bit of housekeeping while we're starting. As this is a webinar and it's being recorded, we kindly ask that any AI assistance or just transcriptions tools, are turned off to respect the privacy and integrity of the session. But please remember this session is being recorded and you will get that in a follow-up in an email so you can go back to it and share perhaps with staff amongst your schools. We do have lots of information to share with you this morning. So please make sure that you sit back, relax, hopefully with a drink, a cup of tea maybe in your hand, ready to listen and soak up all that information. But before we start, everyone seems to be rather shy this morning. Love to know where you're calling from, how far you are away from me. I'm in North Wales, right on the coast, near a place called Llandudno, but I live in a place called Rhos on the sea. And I'd love to know where you're calling from this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you are. Oh, Claire, I think they're very shy. I can't see anything coming up in the chat this morning.
Oh, I'm looking at the Domino's and the Battenberg, though. I think that it's amazing what people do, isn't it?
I'm really sorry. Battenberg is not, I cannot stand marzipan. Oh, no.
Oh, I love a Battenberg.
Oh, no. Don't like that. Oh, sorry. I realised I hadn't actually clicked on there. Oh, Domino's delivered at lunchtime for a child. I've had that parents' evening, or when Ofsted have called. What, Southwood and Ferries? Oh, I'm an Essex girl. I was born in Malden, so I know where you are, Paul. Blackpool. I'm sorry, I'm just going back through. But I'm in Bristol. Carl Shorten. Okay, right. So I'm going to start now. I've got my chat in there. Sorry if you see the side of my head, but my chat's on another screen this morning. So welcome and thank you again for joining us this morning. So the audience is going to be quite varied, I think, that we have on here. So whether you're a math leader, a senior leader, subject leader, teacher, this is definitely the right place for you to find the right information. So I'm Nicola, and my role is really to support schools in choosing the right assessment solutions. I've been a teacher and senior leader for over 20 years in primary schools, teaching right the way across, all the way from reception, all the way up to year six. Year six, a lot of my career. This is an exciting time for school leaders, teachers, and for us all here at NFER. I'm also joined today with Claire, who has been at the heart of NFER's online assessment journey, right the way from the very beginning. So Claire has worked closely with school leaders and pupils throughout the trialling setup, looking at working with teachers, working with pupils, and we really do value her expertise with us today. We're also joined by Lisa and Rupal, who'll be supporting with questions throughout the whole webinar. Please don't hesitate to use the Q&A function. We're here to help. So for those of you that have just joined, if you could turn off that AI, that'd be great. But also please don't be shy to pop anything in the chat. So this morning, we're going to be giving you a brief introduction to NFER Online Assessments, and you might hear us call that NOA. Here are our mascots, NOA there on the left, and that's the mascot for years 3 and 4, and Fern there on the right. And these will guide you and your pupils through their assessments. We want you to be able to see the school portal and the dashboard and how that works. You'll be able to see sample questions from both reading and maths tests will be shared with you today from years 3 to 6. We will walk through our reporting section of the portal so that you can see all the different types of reports that are available to schools. Please feel free to ask that question. They're all valid and they will be answered today. Even if not, they'll be popped into the email afterwards. So please don't be shy, like I've said. So how can NFER support you? Our online or digital tests are for Key Stage 2 pupils in reading and in maths. NOA can be used across the full academic year, covering all 3 terms, or can be employed in individual terms depending on what works for you and your school's assessment needs. You can purchase years 3 to 6 on our website so you can be ready for any terms assessments. And obviously there's definitely time still to start that now. NFER Online Assessments are available to purchase either as a token or as a 3-year subscription, enabling you to decide which option best aligns with your own school's needs. You can view more information about pricing and on our website, and I know Rupal will be popping this in the chat so you can see that link in there. So our tests are aligned to the English National Curriculum and are written with the STA frameworks for test providers as a guide, a bit like your ARA for your SATs. Something on everyone's lips, definitely in the meetings that I have with schools, is how can we save our teachers time? Well, 70% of NOA questions are auto-marked and provide instant feedback and alleviate that marking time. The remaining 30% are teacher marked or verified to enable really further insight in those open-ended or show your working reasoning type of questions. Our year 3 to 6 trials have acquired data from over 59,000 completed assessments, making them reliable and robust for you. You'll be able to monitor and evidence pupil progression and identify learning needs and gaps through the NOA reporting tool, which Claire will show you in a moment. NOA can be used on either desktop or tablets, Windows or Mac devices with the latest versions of Chrome, Edge, Firefox or Safari. Those interactive mascots, NOA the panda and Fern the robot, help pupils navigate through the practice questions and familiarisation materials before starting a marked assessment. Now I'm going to be handing over to my colleague Claire to give us that all-important walkthrough this morning.
Great, thank you, Nicola. Good morning, everyone.
There you are.
Okay, let me share my screen. There we go. Hopefully that's working. Right, so as Nicola has outlined, I will give you an insight into our NOA platform and show you a selection of questions from our reading and maths tests so you get the look and feel of the assessments. And I've got a lot to show you, so I'm just going to launch in straight away. So I'm already logged into the Establishment Portal. This is the environment used by schools to administer the tests. So we have our main menu, and in administration here, this is where you will set up anybody who needs to log into the system, so both staff and learners. For your learners, we would recommend exporting your learner data out of your MIS system as a CTF file and importing them into NOA. So in admin, you can create your people onto the NOA platform, and then the NOA icon. This is where teachers will complete tasks to get ready for their learners to take the tests. And that follows a logical process down these different menu items. So at the top, we can see allocate learners to an assessment. We can also see that I've set myself a learner selection. So this morning I'm working with my class of my Jaguars children. So when I go to allocate learners to an assessment, here we go. I can see the different assessments that have been allocated to the school. I'm going to go with the Year 4 Maths Summer Assessment. And when I come to here, because I've got my learner selection of Jaguars, these are the children that I can see. And I'm going to select all of them. And then I'm going to review my selection. So in review, I could decide if there were any children I wanted to allocate extra time to, and that gives them 25% on top of the standard time. I could also, if I felt it was necessary, select a child and remove them if for whatever reason they weren't going to sit the assessment. So once I'm happy with the learner names that are showing on that page, I'm going to click confirm. And that's going to take me directly to our passcodes page. So your learners will need a 6-character passcode to log in to take their assessments. And this can be set as common words, like you can see here, or it could be numerical. So you can determine that whichever you feel your learners would be able to enter in most easily. Okay, so that's the passcodes page. We have some familiarization materials. So in terms of preparing your children to take the test, we want to let them know what to expect. So we have some videos that are helpful to share as a group activity to prepare the children, give them support on how to navigate through the assessments and how to answer the different question types. The view test status, this is helpful for you as teachers maybe as the tests are in progress. You can use it to see where your learners are in the process. So we can see who's completed their tests, who's maybe not started, who's maybe paused and needs to go back to it to continue. So the view test status page gives you that overview of where your learners are. Okay, so now let's have a look at the actual assessments. So the assessments I'm going to show you are for demo purposes only. And we'll have a look at some of the different question types. Our tests do include longer explain and problem solving questions to ensure that our tests do provide full curriculum coverage. So this is the login page that the children will see, and this is where they will enter their 6-character passcode. And I'm logging us into a Year 3 reading assessment. They'll also see their name, which just confirms that they have entered their unique passcode. That's having a little think. There we go. And they can see the test that they need to start. And when we click, just to mention as well, actually, because these are for demo purposes, I've just got one test in here. For the live product, a reading assessment is made up of 2 tests, exactly the same as it is for our paper tests. So I'm going to click Start Test. It launches the test. We'll be taken into full screen mode, so that helps minimize any distractions for the children. And like I say, I will just pick out some some different question types to show you. Typically in a demonstration, there we go, that was just having another little think. So we're going to start. Here we go. So the reading text, they're designed to be visually appealing and engaging. They can be navigated through by clicking on different page numbers or by using the next button. And then to navigate through the assessment, they have next question and they have a back button at the top of the test. So our first question here, it's a multiple choice question, just ensuring that they can identify details from the text. This is a comparison question where they can match the correct description to the correct character, and they can do this by dragging and dropping, or by selecting and selecting where they want that answer to go to. There we go. And depending on the device that they're using to take the test, one of those methods may be easier than the other. This question requires a little bit of text entry. And here we've got an extract from the text, so where they can show their understanding of word meaning. This is a scaffolded version because they can only select from the words that have been highlighted. Okay. As they move through, this progress bar also shows them visually how they're progressing through the test. We also have a tools menu. So our tests have been designed with accessibility at the heart of them. We can make the text, we can make the test bigger or smaller. We can change the colored backgrounds. Different colors can be selected to improve readability, and the learners can pause the test. So the tests are timed, but if they need to take a break, they can press pause. That will pause the timer, and they can come back to the test when they are ready to do so. When they get to the end of the test, we do encourage them to review the work that they've done. So this shows the questions that they've attempted, and then also highlighted the questions where they haven't put in a response. And they can click back on that and have another go and see if they are able to answer that question. Then they can use the review button to come back to the review page, or again, they could carry on just navigating through to check their different responses. So only when they are happy to do so, when they've checked their work, then they should click End Test, and that will submit the test for marking. So that was a Year 3 reading test. Let's just look at a Year 6 reading test, just so you can see the increase in challenge. Here we go. So we can see the text is a little bit sort of more detailed, a little bit more in depth. We have the different question types again. So we've got our multiple choice. We've got ones where they can select from a menu. And I'm just going to scroll through. Here again, we've got another text extract, but this time they could select from any of the words. And then our Year 5 and 6 reading tests will also include 3-mark questions. So exactly as they will find in SATs. Again, this is a slightly scaffolded version because the table just helps them to structure a response as they work through that. So that's to give you an idea of our reading assessments. Let's now have a look at maths. So this is a Year 3 maths assessments. Again, our live maths assessments, they are made up of 3 tests, exactly the same as for our live paper products. In this example, there are 2. This pupil has already completed the arithmetic test and they are set to start their reasoning test. So again, we're taken into full screen mode, and like we did for reading, I'm just going to move through so you can see some of the different question types. And again, just get that sort of look and feel as to how it works. We have a ruler tool. So this ruler, it can be lifted and moved around the screen to measure an object. A statistics question where they'd have to successfully interpret the key, obviously, to get that correct. Got fractions. This is a nice visual fractions one where they could select any 6 of those carrots to get that correct. And this is an example of a show your working question. So again, this allows the children to show their working. It allows you as a teacher to see how they're tackling the question. They have symbols above the answer box that they can use to help them structure their working it out. Let's just put that in there. And then an answer box for the final answer. So in each of the maths reasoning tests, you will see this kind of question, the show your working question. Angles, again, we saw drag and drop on our reading test. Again, there are examples where you'll see that in the maths assessments as well. And exactly the same, when they get to the end, they'll be encouraged to check their work before they end test. Okay, so now let's have a look at a year 5 and 6. So this has got a mixture of questions in it for demonstration purposes from the upper key stage 2 assessments. Let's have a look. So in these assessments, you will find the introduction of long multiplication and long division questions. Here we go. So again, with a similar sort of working out grid that they'll be familiar with, and they can do their working out. Again, there are symbols at the top that they can use to show. So if I click on that, I can strike it out to show that I've used that. So long multiplication, long division, coordinates questions where they can click on the dots to draw the shape. Okay. What else do we have? Protractor tool now, as well as the ruler question, so they can move the protractor to measure an angle. Or also questions like this as well, where they can drag that round to show an angle, or use the buttons on the side if they find it easier to do so to move that in different increments. So that gives you a bit of an insight into what the tests look like. So once your children have completed their tests, obviously, you as a teacher will want to know how they've got on. The majority of the questions in each test are auto-scored, but there is a small element of teacher marking. Teacher marking is found back in our NOA menu and marking. Before we have a look at that, we're just going to launch an on-screen poll, actually, because we're just really interested to find out how many hours do you or your teachers spend marking in assessment week? Great. So that's a substantial time spent on marking. Thank you for responding to that. One of the real benefits of the online assessments and the feedback that we have received from schools so far is the time saved, and that's particularly with teacher marking. So let's have a look at how that works. So I'm going to select the Year 3 maths test that we were having a look at earlier. So within this test, there were literally just 2 questions that required teacher input. So let's have a look. Select question 14, which was the show your working question we saw earlier. So we can see the pupil's name, we can see the question, and here we can see the working out that I entered in a moment ago. On the right-hand side, we've got the mark scheme and the buttons where we can allocate a mark. So Theo, shown his working out, he's got that correct. He can gain the full 2 marks. If I click on next, I'll be taken automatically to the next learner. This learner hasn't really successfully tackled the question. They haven't shown us enough working, so that is incorrect. And here we've got an example where, yep, they have done some working. They were on the right lines. They have worked out 8 and 24, but they've made a mistake in their final calculation. But because they've shown their working out, we can award them the 1 mark. So it's quite straightforward. It's quite a smooth process that you literally just scroll through the different learners against that question and allocate them their marks. Okay, so they've taken the tests, you've marked the small element of teacher marking, then you want to have a look at the data and see how your learners have performed. So that's in reports. So we've got our reporting icon. So I'm just going to pick out some of these reports for you today to make sure we've got time to look at some of your questions at the end. All of the reports allow you to compare the performance of your learner selection to the national average of the standardization sample. When you do select a report, you've got a choice of whether you want to look at the overall attainment. So we've got some different attainment reports. And then we've got specific reports to help you analyze performance and identify gaps, be that at curriculum or question level detail. They also break down into all learner reports. So maybe as a class teacher, you are likely to want to see summary data, but to also see the breakdown by the different pupils in your class. Whereas a senior leader might prefer to look at the summary reports. So they're getting, the key patterns and trends, but without the individual detail. That's what you'll see on the summary reports. And then there's a couple of individual reports for when you identify a specific individual you want to look at in a little more detail. To make sure we've got some good reporting data, I'm going to change my learner selection. So no longer jaguars, we are going to go with tigers and lions. So the reports that I'm going to show you are going to draw data from these 2 year groups. Okay, so let's have a look at attainment or learners. Although before actually we look at the detail of that, just to say the look and feel, the design of the reports, that's consistent across all of the reports. And when we're showing a comparison to the standardization sample, that's broken into these 5 bandings, shown in colours that are easy to understand. You can always see the learner selection that you're looking at up here, the assessment that you're looking at the data for. And there's also always a link to online guidance should you want to find out more about the makeup of that report. Okay, so attainment or learners, this is kind of the go-to report once your learners have completed an assessment. So how have your learners done, and are they performing better than or less well than the standardization sample? So this visual distribution bar It will show you the percent of your learners that fall into each of these 5 bandings and how that compares to the sample. So our learners are doing quite well. We have more falling in the well above and the above categories. We've got less falling in the below and the well below. We can then see a bit of data here. We can see the raw scores and the comparison for the whole assessment and for the whole and for each individual test. Then that's the kind of summary data. Below that, we've got the individual data for the different learners in our learner selection. So we can see for each of them, again, their raw score for each test, their raw score for the total assessment, and their standardized score highlighted as per the key that we saw at the top. So again, just visually, we can see who's performing, how they're performing in comparison to the sample. So Patricia doing really well, she's well above. Elizabeth here is falling well below the average of the sample. And we've also got a percentile rank and an age standardized score. And all of these columns are sortable. So you can group your children in their different bandings together. Okay. All of our reports can be filtered as well, so by different pupil characteristic groups. Let's have a look at pupil premium. I'm going to say yes and confirm. So whereas we had 15 learners before, this is now updated to show me data for 2 pupils in receipt of pupil premium. And again, I can see the individual detail as to how they've got on. Let's just clear that filter off. And all of our reports can be exported into Excel as well. Back to our report menu. Might be that you've looked at the attainment or learners and you have identified a particular individual you want to look at in more detail. So let's take the individual attainment. This is showing us data for Ray. He was one of our pupils in receipt of pupil premium that we just saw. So he sat sort of in the middle-ish of the below the average of the standardization sample. Again, we can see the breakdown, the analysis here of how that compares, including the percent of questions omitted. And beneath that, we have a breakdown as to how that individual has performed in each curriculum area covered in that assessment. So if we want to put support in place for this child to try and move him sort of through to being more in line, we could have a look at here and see the different curriculum areas where maybe support would be more helpful. Okay, back to our report menu. We do have some reports here, the attainment academic year and the attainment snapshot, that shows you the data for the different termly assessments across an academic year. So once you've taken more than one assessment, you can sort of track that within the academic year. But I'm going to pick out the curriculum area reports next, which can be really helpful for identifying gaps. So let's go curriculum area all learners. So again, same look and feel. We've got the key at the top. Then we've got a summary table detailing the average number of marks awarded to our learner selection within each curriculum area. So this is helpful to scan across and pick out what are our strengths, where are skills embedded, and where are our weaknesses. So we can see addition and subtraction and problem solving in measurement standing out here as areas where we are performing below the average of the standardization sample. I could then scroll down to see the individual detail. And if I take problem solving in measurement, again, I could sort in that column to group the children within each banding. So instantly I can see this is a group of children who would benefit from support in problem solving and measurement. And I might also choose to sort like that, to choose who are the children, who are performing really well and may benefit from extension activities. So lots of information that you can sort of used to help put support in place in the classroom. Okay, so we saw when we were selecting reports, we had all learner reports and we had summary reports. This is the all learner because we can see the individual names. I can switch to the summary view when I'm in the report. So this is the view that is possibly more helpful for senior leaders who just want to gain those sort of at a glance insights. So we've got the different curriculum areas covered in the assessment, and we can see the comparison, how our learners have performed against the sample with the highlighting. Let's have a look at the question level reports. So let's go question level all learners. So again, we've got a top summary table, and then we've got the very visual grid where you can pick out very easily who are the learners who've got many questions correct, who've struggled more, or maybe which are the questions that proved more challenging. So obviously green is correct, amber for partially correct, red incorrect, and grey means they omitted to respond to the question. I'm interested in question 12 because it seems that very few of my children got that completely correct. So in the view button, we can use to actually launch the question and a model response. So we can see what kind of question was that? And having a little think, there we go. So we can see that this question required the pupils to give a more extended explanation. Maybe that's a question type we want to find time to practice a little bit more in class. And again, I could switch to the summary view, which again just goes through the different questions. I've still got a view button, and I can pick out from the highlighting which are the questions where, as a group, we performed either better than or less well than the standardization sample. Lastly, I want to just show you the individual responses report. I think this is quite helpful. This is kind of your equivalent of a paper answer booklet. So for a selected learner, you can see their different responses. And for most questions, you can see whether that was correct or incorrect. So for this first question, our learner put father, that was incorrect, and we can see the correct answer was cousin. And scrolling through that, we can see the different questions and the different responses. So that's to give you an idea how the reports work, the kind of data that you can expect to see and use in your analysis. Before I pass back to Nicola for to go through some of your questions, just want to point out on every page there is a help widget as well. You can use that to search for specific help. You have the number for our dedicated support desk, or you can raise a ticket that will go through to our help desk. So different ways that you can get support should you need it. So I hope that's been helpful. I know it's a bit of a whistle stop, a lot to take in, but thank you very much. I will stop sharing, and here's Nicola.
Lovely, thank you, Claire. Yes, like Claire just said, it is a lot of content, a lot of information if it is new for you. Thank you very much for your questions. Sometimes it's a bit shy to start with, and then it starts. I'm just going to go through some of them. So Amanda said about does it take a lot to load the children? I wasn't quite sure if you meant actually sort of loading up the information and the passcodes, or actually the tests. I'm assuming it's the tests. Like RuPaul said, it is going to depend on your own server and information at your school, how other online things work at your school, but passcodes, etc., and setting up the children is easy once you've done it the first time round, and much quicker than the multiplication check. Then we had to thank you very much, Amanda, for that. Then also you said, or you asked about the comparing the paper and the online version. That is something that NFER are looking at in our Centre for Assessment, looking at those and how they compare. But one thing just to, as it's not sort of been mentioned, online or paper, it is down to you and your schools and choice on what suits your own environment, your staff, your pupils. And like Claire said, that what Claire showed you this morning was for demo purposes. So some of those were, you know, year 3 papers versus some of the questions, for example, in the year 5 and 6 maths. So one of the things I would say, Amanda, or anybody else on the call this morning, is that it would be worth you taking up the opportunity of the free tokens, the 10 free tokens. That there will be a sign up link in there, and it will be on the email, that you can actually for 30 days take the tests either as teachers, or you could give them to a little focus group in your school to actually do a bit of user research yourself about how they work, and then you can look at them. But they are national curriculum aligned, and they are by the STA framework for test providers, like I mentioned earlier, that about the weighting of different subjects and programs of study, for example. Emma, you mentioned about paper and the children working out on like on paper tests that you sort of promote in your school. I'm a big advocate of mini whiteboards. I love them. However, I would use probably a little draft book, which is a bit old school, but I'd probably call it a quiz book or something like that, where the children can put all their notes, what they would have done on paper. They can put that in there that they can have as a reference. So I was making notes while you were going through as well. Paul, you did ask about the 2-mark question. We're going to double check that, but like you pointed out with the 2-mark question, this would be in maths, where the children would write in the reasoning box, and then they could write their correct answer in the little box underneath. That would be sort of like that they would get the 2 marks, almost irrelevant of what they'd put in the box. Obviously, we'd be encouraging children to be writing their working out in there and how they've done that, but we will get back to you on that, Paul. But it's really also for teachers to check, because if it was automatically marked at 2 mark, a child still might have made an error, where the teacher can either verify that or can look at that and see where a child may have missed out a step, etc., but still got the right answer. I hope that helps, Paul. Nikki, you have you asked about export, which I know Rupal put on there. Yes, all the reports can be exported into Excel, and we know schools then put it into other platforms that they use, whether it's assessment trackers or onto MIS, so they can then link it with attendance, for example. I think that might be it. The only thing I'm going to then put on the screen, so thank you very much for your questions, is about the, let me just share my screen. So I do apologize, I've lost now share. Just so I can go through that. Now I'm going to move this box at the top, just so you can see this. So all the different questions that have come up in our webinars that we have done over the last year will be coming up in an email for you, so you can have a look through. There is our email address as well, so you can contact myself and Rupal and the team about any questions that might be bespoke to your school or your organisation. Also, there is a opportunity to on the NOA product tour. So that's almost like what Claire was showing you this morning, and you can then navigate to all the different things that you would like to see in your school. And you can do whether you're going to reporting or setting up. Video sample is really useful for you to share amongst your teachers in your schools as well. It's about 9 to 10 minutes, really quick and easy, sort of walk you through, and then the teachers can actually see what that's like. And like I've said, there are get the free tokens as well. That will be in the email. I would definitely recommend for schools, if you are a paper user or you're not sure, it will be worth you having a go. Like I said, with either teachers in your school doing it, or actually children. I would have probably got my school council to have a go and give me feedback about how they felt it, compared to other tests that they've done, and what they liked about it or what they didn't like about it. And then you can make that decision in your own schools. But there's definitely time if you want to switch to online. This term is a long term, so there's definitely time. But I'd like to thank everybody this morning for your time, particularly for Claire and for Rupal and for Lisa in supporting with all those questions. And definitely watch out for the email with the FAQs in there, and an a link to the webinar for this morning that you might want to share amongst your school too. But thank you very much.